So I hear your energy's better.
Energy is better, endurance is better, especially physically. Like
Yeah.
I can run like I normally have, and
Nice.
I don't have to walk up all the hills, which is great. Exercise doesn't deplete me as much as it used to. Mood is better because I'm not tired, so I
Right.
can roll with things better. One thing that surprised me was I'm having much more subdued perimenopausal symptoms. Like I'm not getting hot at night as much, which I mean, this is peak time of year for environmental influence in that regard.
Yeah.
And so I don't know the mechanism of why that might be, but it's been very consistent since.
I think that's dopamine, actually.
Yeah,
You
well,
can
sweet. Thank you.
synthesize dopamine better.
Okay, that's been
Yeah.
great. I'm still frustrated with my uterus, but it's still bleeding, which is just rude.
Right. I thought that the IUD was going to take care of that.
I know, and I'm trying to be patient because with IUDs, the name of the game is wait 3 months because it actually can increase the bleeding in the beginning. And so I will hit the 3-month mark at the end of this month, and I'm hoping that it will all chill out. But really, I'm like, come on, because it's just enough to be annoying,
Right.
and not enough to really be depleting. I am taking oral iron at least a couple days a week, just because I know I don't want it to plummet.
Right.
But I'm hoping to sustain that indefinitely until there's no more bleeding ever. Other symptom, or I can't think of anything else off the top of my head aside from the stuff that we talked about last time. Like I haven't had any fidgety legs at night.
Nice.
That's totally gone. Yeah, cognitive capacity is much better. I really noticed the difference at work, which I know this is totally self-evident, but if I'm less tired, it makes it a lot easier for me to not only be a smarter doctor, but be a more compassionate doctor because I have more bandwidth for my patients.
Those are all great observations. Why don't we talk a little about oral supplementation, because there's lots of different opinions on that. One thing that I always start with is don't do the prescriptive or oral iron that your primary care physician gives you. It's like an iron sulfate, I believe, and it causes constipation like crazy.
Yes. And the only reason your provider is doing that is because then it's covered as a prescription. It's not like it's better. And we see this with vitamin D also. They give you the 50,000 IUs because they can write it as a prescription. So it gets covered by your insurance. It's not that it's better. So that's an important message, I think, for people, because they're like, well, they gave it to me, I should take this one. Like, let's talk about all the other forms that are so much more bioavailable and less constipating.
Right. And fortunately for both vitamin D and iron, I mean, there is a price point that it would be too expensive for some of my clients. The iron that I like is Thorn Ferrosorb. It's highly bioavailable, and it's like $20 for 2 months.
Right.
You're taking daily. There's a number of out there, and I'll put a list below of different forms that seem to be more available. Do you have a product that you like?
I use Ferrosorb preferentially with people too, although I have a few patients who do better with Vitanica's Iron Extra, which is a little bit less. So Ferrosorb has 25 milligrams of iron bisglycinate, and the Iron Extra has 18. Both have a whole bunch of cofactors which just make the iron more readily absorbable. I think the iron bisglycinate form itself is what keeps it from being less constipating. So if I have patients who prefer to source this on their own at a conventional drugstore, I just tell them to go anywhere and look for something that says easy iron, because that's almost always like 25 milligrams of iron bisglycinate. It just doesn't have all the other stuff that helps make it a little bit more efficiently tolerated. And I think the bioavailability of something like the Ferrosorb product is part of why you can take it every single day, because I'm sure you're aware of the argument in the literature of doing every other day dosing, which seems to be most applicable to the high dose ferrous sulfate, the prescription form.
I've had patients come in who are like, well, I read this research and we're going to do every other day, and they immediately stop the curve of improvement when they do that. I think that's a good observation that it might be specific to the sulfate. But it's like, if you can offer it to the body every day, it's going to take in what it can.
Right.
And then if you're not doing something like Thorn that has the cofactors to it, like vitamin C, getting vitamin C in with the iron really helps the absorbability.
Right, whether it be from food or not. And, speaking as someone who always has my mug nearby, I like tea, but it's really important not to drink tea, not to swill your iron down with tea or anything that has tannins in it, because that'll bind up some of the iron and you just won't get as much of it.
And some people are very sensitive to it. I have a patient who has just struggled with iron over a number of years. And I was like, how much tea, how much coffee, like, how much are you drinking? And she's like, not that much. And she just, like, she kept going to these super low levels and having to go get reinfused, which just annoyed her. And she doesn't have a ton of money. So it was an expense that she was getting to the point where she wanted to avoid. And she cut out green tea and it helped a lot.
Wow.
And she was just like, oh,
yeah, that's not something I want to hear, Chris.
I mean, not that she's never going to do it, but like not on a daily ritual. Okay. If she wants to stop doing infusions annually. Okay. Right. And like, it's all a choice, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's not all or nothing. It's like, what is your current health goal? Mm-hmm. And how much are you going to prioritize things?
Right. And everybody's biochemistry is different. So
definitely everybody's biochemistry is different.
If it's not working as it should, that is a great suggestion.
Yeah. And, like she just did the experiment of like, okay, I'm going to do 3 months. And because she tests her own ferritin at this point, because it's cheaper for her to go through Request a Test or the various places. Mm-hmm. And she's like, yeah, just as like all the things that I do, because she's pretty consistent with, getting in red meats and cooking with cast iron and eating like lots of heavy iron vegetables like spinach and beets. And so she's doing all that kind of stuff along with vitamin C every time she takes an iron supplement. And she just like pulled anything that blocks the absorption of iron for 3 months and was like, yep, that seems to be better.
Great. Good lesson.
Which is the other thing about healthcare that I always encourage is like, don't do all or nothing. Do like, I'm going to do this for a while and then assess.
Therapeutic trial. Very, very useful way of framing things. And it also makes it a lot easier if you're the one who's trying to make it change.
Anything else we should cover?
I can't think of anything off the top. I mean, this has been a journey, and I hope that if it helps anyone else feel more empowered to talk about these things with our healthcare providers so they can get the help they need, that's fantastic.
Yep. So if we were to do just a quick recap, get your ferritin tested. Mm-hmm. If it's below 50, that's probably why you're fatigued. And we'll have papers attached to that to back that up. Talk to your provider about ruling out causes for low iron, right? Is it bleeding? We talked about for menopause, but it could also be something in your digestive system. Like you need to check to make sure that not too much blood's coming out of the uterus or out of the digestive system, or those are the main ones.
Yeah, those are the main sources of bleeding. Or is it iron deficiency in the diet or a malabsorption issue?
Right.
You're at an increased risk for gastrointestinal bleeding. Obviously, if you take non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, which I think a lot of people know, but if you're on an NSAID and an SSRI, your risk is even more increased for gastrointestinal bleeding, which I find most people are not aware of. So it's just a good thing to keep tabs on.
And for those of you who are not familiar with NSAIDs, that's like ibuprofen, Aleve, Tylenol, anything that's not an opioid that's blocking pain. So that's a good tip. And so then looking at sort of nutritional causes, so people who are vegetarian, vegans are going to be at a higher risk of nutritional deficiencies, or people who aren't eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. When you don't eat fiber, your food kind of goes through your digestive system. And iron's a huge molecule that has to kind of sit down, and the body has to think about how it's getting across the intestine. And so that would be another cause.
Good point.
And so looking at what might possibly be the cause and ruling out those things, and then having a conversation with your primary care physician on how you're going to treat it. They're going to say, well, supplementation, just like yours did. And you might say, well, I know that there's a shortcut. And could we consider an infusion? Most likely, the easier path for that is to go find a naturopath or a functional medicine doc who's doing infusions and go have the conversation with them.
I think through the conventional system, the argument is most easily made if you fall under the definition of iron deficiency at either that initial stage, which is a ferritin under 20, or that low hemoglobin and hematocrit and low ferritin, or third stage with actual low red blood cell count as well.
Yeah.
And it's worth a shot, definitely. Although another thing that I think is worth pointing out is these days, with insurance being as challenged and as broken as it is, even if you can get it ordered through your conventional provider and covered by insurance will often bill insurance at like $1,000 a pop. And so if you have, depending on what your responsibility, if it's a percentage, it may end up being more expensive to get it through insurance, and definitely more cumbersome than if you chose to work a little outside the box for it.
What I often see is the physicians will say, well, let's do a therapeutic trial of iron before. And so that's going to raise you just out of because it will help. And so,
yeah, that's a good point.
And you still feel like crap.
Yeah.
And so you got diagnosed in May. Wow. So actually, like when you think about this was really a 90-day window.
But this would not have happened in such a timely fashion if I was not also a medical professional. I mean, not only from my education perspective of knowing the right things to ask, but quite frankly, from you're one of our own. We got to get this taken care of quickly. This is not normal.
This is not normal. And I point out that it's 90 days because that's the minimum you have to give the healthcare system.
Fair.
Because I know when I'm dealing with, I'm like, and we had this in our conversation, you're like, I want it now.
Yes.
This is taking too long.
Yes.
7 days or whatever it was, right? Like, like the need to move, the want to move it along. And it's just the healthcare system's not capable of it right now.
Correct. Yeah, I've already spoken to our mobile IV infusion dude who set up here. Yeah. And he's like, all right, I can source the Venifer for you. It's going to cost $300 a pop. If you've got people that just need a prescription from you. I'm like, all right, great. I have that resource available in town now.
And so that's the other option that's good to point out. I just visited my father in Colorado, and there's an infusion place that's like, we'll do vitamin C and we'll do, and so they might be willing to do, with the encouragement from a qualified physician, do iron. So, one of the benefits of how horrible our healthcare system is within the insurance world is a lot of creative startups are happening outside the healthcare system.
True. That is very true.
So be creative as you're looking for solutions, and don't give up. Because even if it takes you a year to work through the system, you can be on supplements, and that's going to help. And it's better than doing nothing, because it just gets harder and worse.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. My mantra, especially when it comes to perimenopause, but this certainly applies for a lot of issues, is just no suffering. You shouldn't have to suffer. And if something's not working, let's get it better.
Right. Let's identify, like minimally, let's understand why this happens and what the body is saying to us.
Right. And that's not too much to ask.
It is
not too much to ask.
Yeah. And for those who don't have access to alternative healthcare because of money or because of location, one of my best recommendations is spend a lot of time in your primary care physician's office. If you go in and they're like, this isn't a problem, just when you get out, go and make another appointment and go make another appointment and go make another appointment. Because our tendency is, oh, they're not going to help us, and we retreat.
Mhm.
And I can assure you from watching a number of different people do this, like if you keep showing up, they will move you into a different position,
Mhm.
and try again or help you because they want the slot.
Yeah.
And they can't stop you for signing up to their office appointment. They just, like, the rules don't permit them. So you just have to like just be in their face until they do something, and bring your own data, bring your own information. Like, here are the studies, here's what I'm asking to do, here's a video, here, like,
Right.
do the research. And that's the brilliance of the internet, is there's a lot of information out there. And I have seen through Medscape, which is a really traditional venue for MDs, that they're talking about infusion for women who have low ferritin and are depressed.
Great. That is nice to hear.
Like, it exists. I did a whole continuing education through them, but they don't respond to it because they're not their habit.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. All of our providers need to be educated, ourselves included, because there's so much out there, as you said earlier.
Well, thank you so much for letting us go on this like journey with you. And I'm so glad that the outcomes were wonderful and that you're feeling better, and
Very grateful. Yeah.
that you're going fun places in the world.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Great.
Well, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.